see you. Thanks for coming in. All right. Hi, how you doing?
WBEZ is 318.
Hello, Ms. Vieira.
We're
going to put you guys in these two seats.
Program comes from your WBEZ membership.
Okay, good.
And the Melville Charitable Trust on the website. WBEZ is supported by Patagonia, a designer of outdoor.
Oh, yeah, I know. Sorry.
I
meant to let you know that.
Afternoon, guys. How are you? Hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you guys.
We're going to play some clips too. So, your headset control is right here.
Okay, cool.
More on how BMO Harris Commercial Bank strives to make it happen at BMO Harris.
We just got into town, and this is only the second thing we've done. We're totally
that's good. You're fresh. Yeah, we're fresh.
Volume control's right there.
Sorry, I should have introduced myself.
Sorry.
I wrote a story interviewing Robert. So I have something. My name's Lauren.
Oh, great.
She's an old friend of mine. I thought, what the fuck is this? Instead of three guys talking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So when did you interview him?
Pardon?
When did you interview
It's
him?
a nice
It
piece.
would have
It's right
been
here.
about a month and a half ago or so. It ran for December. So yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great.
It took me a long time to figure out who Robert was.
You call him Bob?
Yeah, we call Bob.
Sorry. I almost said Bob. I'm like, I don't know him. I
He
don't
really
know
goes
him.
back and forth. I mean, everyone calls him Bob.
Mr. Lopez.
Mr. Lopez, Senor Lopez.
Hello, my name is Elder
Are you sick of hearing this song?
We have to go watch the show.
Sorry, yeah, it wasn't my idea. I said, we don't have to play music from it. People will buy it.
Hello, my name is Elder Green. I would like to share with you Jesus Christ.
Good, they'll be very happy.
My name is Elder Young.
That is a song that Matt Stone and Trey Parker, who are responsible for that song, are now sick of. It's the opening song of a show called The Book of Mormon, which opens in Chicago sort of momentarily. They are both in studio after being run over by Greg Cott and Jim DeRogatis of Sound Opinions. We're also joined by Lauren Vieira, my old colleague from the Tribune, now a freelance writer, who interviewed another one of the particulars here. Gentleman and Lady Howdy.
Howdy.
Hello.
Howdy.
You're in for town for a week.
Yes.
To sort of oversee to what exactly with this production?
Well, we're still learning how this whole Broadway thing works, but now that we've done the Broadway thing, we go to New York actually and do rehearsals for now we have to have whole new companies. And so we were actually in New York overseeing all the rehearsals for this company that then all moved down here. And now we're here to see it for the first time. Actually, we'll see the run-through in this theater tonight. We'll see a run-through of it.
Anxious? How do you feel?
Yeah, a little anxious. I mean, like Trey said, we saw rehearsals, so we've seen this company do it, but they've been teching now, which is a new word we know recently.
We've
recently learned this stuff. We're dropping some big terms here.
Wait a minute, Matt Stone and Trey Parker. We're get in on this any time.
Teching, sorry.
You guys, this show did not. Book of Mormon was not sort of written and come to life over a weekend somewhere. You guys, this is a long
time.
And I don't think people.
In the making, right?
It's I mean,
yeah.
it was
the better part.
We know exactly when it was because it was 2004. Because that was the year that we were doing Team America, the movie Team America.
Right.
And we were in New York talking to Scott Rudin about, because we were getting ready to shoot it and we were working on the script. And Scott said in a meeting while we were working on the script, he said, "Oh, these guys are doing this puppet musical on Broadway right now." And we were like, "What?" And we got all freaked out thinking, "Oh, someone's doing this already?" We thought it was the same kind of marionettes and stuff like that. And we were just like, "Oh no!" So we're like, "Well, we better go see it." And so that day or the next day, Matt and I went and saw Avenue Q, and really knew nothing about it. Just that we heard that it was a big deal, and so I remember we sat down and watched it, and we're both like, "Wow, this is really good." And I remember at intermission, I was saying, "This is really good," and Matt didn't want to leave, which was a big deal.
You wanted to leave it at intermission?
Because Matt always wants to leave at intermission.
I call it halftime.
Yeah.
Game's over.
Yeah.
Game's over.
And so
I've seen enough.
And it was at intermission too that we were looking through the program, and we didn't know anybody involved. And it says, and it gets to, we're looking at the people that were involved and everything, and it had a special thanks, Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
And then we really liked it.
Yeah,
Then
we're
you said,
like,
"You have to
what a
stay."
great show.
And we're
You
like,
have to
wow,
stay.
this is really good. And
We
but
were right.
we couldn't believe that that we just had no idea why would this be? We don't know these people. And so then the show ended, and Bobby Lopez came down the aisle and said, "Hey, I heard you guys were
Bobby
here."
Lopez is the brains
yeah.
behind that show.
And said, "I heard you guys were here. I wanted to introduce myself." And we're like, "Yeah, we're really confused. Like, why are we in this?" So anyway, we're like, let's run across the street and get a drink. So we leave the crowd. We go, and we're all sitting down having a drink. And Bobby explains to us that he said he went and saw the South Park movie, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and walked out of that movie saying, "I'm going to do a musical like this." And it said that that's the single thing that really inspired him at that moment to write Avenue Q, and started doing it all based on that, and that's why he had us in the special thanks. So we just kept talking, about
theater,
about everything. We just talking about everything, and
actually, because he asked us
what's on your mind?
What should I do? What should I do with my career? Because he kind of looked up to us as elder statesmen a little bit, because we're a little bit older than him. And Avenue Q now was this big hit, and we said, well, what do you want to do? And he said, something about Mormons. And we were like, wait, what? We want to do something about Mormons.
This has to be the most serendipitous meeting.
Well, because we had done ever since
American theater.
Yeah, ever since we did Cannibal the musical, we had always had Mormons in our stuff and in our films and in our stuff. Mormons were always a big part of it, and we knew there was a big Mormon thing that we would do someday. But we figured it'd probably be a movie. It'd probably be, but it was Mormons, and growing up in Colorado, that was a part of the main reason. But Mormons were always in our work, and we always thought we'd do some big thing with it. And he said, well, I want to do a big thing in Mormon. And we were surprised that a guy from New York was saying, I want to do something about Mormons. Because that's such a Midwest thing.
Does that surprise you, Lord Vera?
A little bit, but I grew up in Southern California, and there was a huge population of Mormons where I live, so they're everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Can't escape it.
Yeah, so it was it was like...
But it really was, actually it was that, because what we wanted to do something about Joseph Smith.
Right.
That's what, he said, I want to do something about Joseph Smith. And we're like, oh, we want to do something about Joseph Smith. And so that's really where it all started. And Matt and I had been to Salt Lake City a bunch, just because we love doing that stuff.
It's fun time. It's such a fun town.
So, we're like, well, have you been to the Temple Square? Have you seen all this stuff in Salt Lake City? And Bobby said, no. It's like, let's meet up in Salt Lake City. We'll show you around. We'll show you that kind of stuff. And that was really, and we were still talking about the Joseph Smith musical. And the more we talked about it, we're like, yeah. And so thinking about the whole musical, covered wagons and period piece, we're just like, we should modernize this somehow. And then that's when the idea of doing it about elders and about kids on their mission.
Did you two, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, have any notion? I mean, you have been very successful in television and movies. Did you have any notion of what is involved in putting on a full-scale Broadway show? No. We had no idea. And in fact, when we first started writing it with Bobby, we were sort of agnostic about film or stage. Really? I mean, we started kind of writing an album. Really, I mean, I don't think we ever thought it would just be an album, but we thought, would this be a movie? And we had ideas in mind for staging that would be a film version of it, and here's a stage version. But then we had Bobby as our partner, and Bobby had already been through that whole process, and was definitely a guy who's steeped in musical theater. So he's always the one telling us, here's the next step. Here's the next step. You do a workshop. You rent a little theater. You get some actors. You do this thing. And then when we got even closer, when we finally decided to do it as a theater thing, we teamed up with Casey Nicola, and Scott Rudin and Garofino, our producer. And Casey's done it. You know what I mean? So we got some great partners. Like, definitely we had no idea. This is a Broadway. There is no question this was a Broadway 18 that collaborated with you on this. Could it have happened any other way, gentlemen?
Yeah, I don't know what it would have looked like, been as good. but yeah, I mean, I think that there was, we had the movie in mind, but like Matt said, what we did was we wrote this as an album first, because we knew that too. Music's been a big deal to us our whole time, and we always end up doing music and stuff. So we wrote this way more like a band. We wrote it all like in a studio, and just tried to come out with one song every time we got together. It was kind of a blessing that Bobby lived in New York and we lived in L.A. Yeah. And that we had to kind of keep putting it down to do South Park, because South Park would come up, and we're like, okay, sorry, because when South Park's going on, we're that's it. That's all we're doing. And so we would put it down, and then South Park would end, and we'd be like, oh yeah, that Mormon thing, we should look at it. And we'd have like a couple songs, we're like, let's listen to those songs again. We'd listen to them and go, those are pretty funny.
Yeah.
Let's write another song. And we'd get together, but because Bobby was there and we were in LA, when we did get together, we felt like we better do something. It's like this time's precious, and we felt like, well, we don't want to waste Bobby's time, and Bobby felt like, well, I don't want to waste their time. So having this collaboration in that way, where we all wanted something to come out of the room, I think was a good thing.
Definitely.
And he talked about, when I interviewed him for this article, which ran in Chicago Social, it's in this month's issue, he was talking a lot about kind of the workshopping and having to rework a lot of different scenarios and lines and things like that. What got scrapped? That's kind of what I'm curious about. What did you just come back and say, this is terrible, we're never putting in the show?
Well, there's one particular song we cut out of the show, and that was at one point we had this song called Family Home Evening in the first act, where the kids, after they get their mission assignments, before they go to Africa, they go home and they sort of spend a night home. And Family Home Evening is a thing that Mormons do, where they sit around and hang out with each other and don't watch TV, and they sing songs. And actually, it sounds pretty great, but I never did. And it's just really, it is a warm song about supposedly establishing how incredible and how much they have these incredibly great, rich, loving home lives before they go off to the other side of the earth. And when we got it in, and it's a totally funny song, and it just didn't carry its weight. It's one of those. And
but it actually had one of I think our favorite lines of like the songs we wrote. It was because the father is singing it to the family, and it's sort of a song about, aren't we all happy, when clearly they weren't. But there was a line in it where he goes, we'll laugh and play together and sing our favorite song. It's called Family Home Evening. We're singing it right now. And it was sort of it was very much a song from like Stan's dad in South Park.
The creative process for television and stage is vastly, vastly different. Could you detail how different it was for the two of you?
Family Home Evening is a good example because, again, another reason that got cut was for Matt and I, we're like, okay, and then we go home and there's their whole family, and they've got like 8 sisters, and they've got like, 7 brothers, and Bobby's like, whoa, like,
where are those people going to come from?
Where are they going to come from? And we're like, what do you mean? And it was just like, once, Bobby kept kind of grounding us in reality and saying, okay, well, who's going to play that part? And we're like, we don't want to think about that, because we just, we do South Park. It's like, we want the army to show up. It does, and so we're just like, but in having to realize, no, there's a, there's
a company.
There's a company, and there's a budget here of people that you've got to be thinking about, and I think later on it became a strength because it made you think a certain way that made it fun. But for the beginning, for Matt and I, that was really hard to get our heads around. Of like, oh, we can't do whatever we want. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
We can't have a white woman in the cast for one song.
Right.
We can't have Cunningham's mom in this. If she's only going to be in one song, and then we're going to go to Africa, and there's no women, like,
what's she going to do?
What you can't have her.
I sensed Matt Stone and Trey Parker that it was an enjoyable creative experience for you, but though vastly.
It was. Well, what was nice was this was our downtime.
Other thing.
This was, we'd go do South Park and kill ourselves, and South Park's always the same now, and it always has been. Where, we just hate it when we're doing it. We always have. We're just like, God, it's so hard, so stressful, and it sucks. and then finally the season's over, and we're like, oh, that was fun. We're like, that's good. But this was the thing that we in our downtime would say, oh, let's work on this thing. So that became fun. But then, of course, it gets to the stage where, oh, this is happening, and then it was work, and it's like, oh, I've got to go to the theater, it sucks. But like, and it was super stressful and scary, to walk around that street corner and see that marquee for the first time, and going, oh, wow, this is happening. Like, and, because it's different. We have millions of people watch South Park, but we don't have to be in the same room as them.
Exactly.
We're definitely not in the same room,
Yeah. Well, it's a different experience. There's a creative hub where you're doing South Park, as Chris Jones detailed in the tribute last Sunday. And here, we're going to take a break. The Book of Mormon opens December 11th at the Bank of America Theater. It is sold out till the year 2042.
I think 42.
About that. That's good for you guys.